Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Alongside Seth Merrow, I am Anthony Mormino. As we are fully entrenched in autumn, I have had frost on the car for probably the last 3 mornings. So if you need any type of unofficial barometer, that's mine.
Oh, I'm right with you. I went out played some old man basketball at the Y up in Saratoga.
I give you credit. I couldn't even imagine. I don't know if I've ever told you. I took up golf because in my middle 30s, I used to play in Washington Park. I would just come home and ache in a way that I didn't remember ever feeling before. And that was like my first sign of not being 20, let's say. And I basically gave it up and took up golf. And that was, I'll be honest with you, I know exactly when it was. I was 33.
The day after is a little bit limpy, I must say. But it's early morning, and so I'm hopping in the car at about 6:30 or 6:45, and yeah, there was some frost out there. But at this point, I said to you when I came in this morning, it's enough that the windshield wiper will wash it away.
Yes.
You know, we were really getting into it when it's like, I got to turn the defroster on, and there's another 5 minutes before I can leave the driveway.
I'm lucky. I guess that's when I'll default to the garage, but I don't like the garage. I use it just for the hard part of winter. What's interesting about today for us, Seth, and I know my memory seems to be stuck in remembering things, but this used to be the gigantic day in horse racing 2 weeks out from the Breeders' Cup. Whether it was Turco Man and the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but this was the big prep day for the United States horses.
Essentially no preps.
No, it's over. Denise even asked me, my wife asked me on the way out, she said, is today a big day? I said, well, I look over Southern California, New York, and Kentucky, and my answer would be no. It doesn't work like that anymore.
This week is a perfect example. Going back to my youth and when I got into the game, to me, the example I always default to of the change was the Wood Memorial used to be 2 weeks before the Derby.
At scale weights, 126. And they held on to it so long, it hurt. That's how they lost. Yeah. They held on too long.
And people were scoffing at the Florida Derby when they were out for the distance they were.
Well, they made it 5 weeks, and they no longer wanted to be a penultimate prep. They wanted to be the prep. And, I've said this about that group that, remember, they started the jackpot pick 6, and everybody poo-pooed that, and all of a sudden every racetrack in America practically at least has tried it, etc. But no, they were ahead of the curve there, and it's the way racing goes. And on Wednesday, they will take entries for the Breeders' Cup. It was funny Ed DeRosa tweeted about this long-range forecast on Twitter. Somebody else on Twitter said, anybody got a long-range forecast for 2023? And I know they were being funny, but I don't think they realized where it was. So my response was, I'll take a shot at this. Clear and fast, Santa Anita. And he gave it a good like, and he laughed coming back, not realizing it's at Santa Anita next year, and the weather is pretty consistent when it's been in Southern California. But Wednesday, they'll draw entries. I think by Wednesday night, you should get the PPs. In horse racing, I've said it many times before, it's my favorite day of the year when they come out for all those races, and you just begin. I try and take it one race a day. You got to pick up the pace, and then they'll draw the final entries and you move on. But it's just to me my favorite thing in the sport.
Yeah, and obviously it'll be a big couple of days here at the Racebook and at Capital OTB. Don't forget, we have 2 huge bankrolls, two $2,000 bankrolls. There's an online bankroll with Mike Rennie, and I'll have a bankroll here at the Clubhouse Racebook, but you can put your name in the hat now for the online bankroll. Send an email to marketingmail@capitalotb.com. Put your name and your account number in the email and put BC Bankroll in the subject line. That'll put you in your name in the hat to potentially get selected for the online team. Here at the Racebook, If folks reserve a table, you automatically get your name tossed in the hat, but you can come down here on Breeders' Cup Saturday and throw your name in the hat as well, and we'll select from that group. So a couple of really ginormous Breeders' Cup Day bankrolls that Saturday. And speaking of reservations, don't forget to make your reservation because that'll guarantee a seat down here. You get a commemorative glass. Should be a lot of fun.
Love those. Now let me ask you something, because you're one of the. Do you have a wagering plan already?
No.
No. Okay.
No, because until they draw, I mean, first of all, what do you do with Flightline? Do you single, or because if you get by him a pick?
Well, I wouldn't be betting that race if I'm one of those.
And that's it.
I want to win. I want to win money for the people. My plan is that race is.
But it's the classic, and so you got to stick it in some fashion.
People say that. I'll just give you one good example. This was 05. I did a contest for Capital with Gene, and I didn't like the classic. It was either going to be Rock Hard 10 or St. Leon, Rock Hard 10 scratch. And I liked other races. I liked the Euros and the Super in the turf. Yeah. And I was like, and I know everybody always says it's the classic, and trust me, I understand it. And I can't wait to see Flightline. But to me, it's like wagering for people. I'd be like, I have no interest here because I have no place to go.
But that's exactly why I don't have a plan. What am I going to do there later on? Because I do want to have something in the classic for the people that are out there. But it probably won't be, particularly if I have some of those opinions earlier in the day where I can maybe go a little with a little more confidence that I'll get something fun. The
one thing that I've often said, and I give two pieces of advice. I give selections on here. That's my job. I have two pieces of advice for people. One is to handicap the card without the morning line there, and sometimes you'll find out you like a 20-1 shot, and you should be forward. You shouldn't be scared off because somebody else thinks it's 20-1. That's one of the
particularly on Breeders' Cup weekend.
Well, that's a different story.
There is a lot of on a day-to-day. Oh, this horse isn't taking a lot of action. I don't buy into that. The 2-year-olds up at Saratoga, I'm getting 10-1 on the horse that was 5-1 on the morning line. My bet goes up. But that's a lot. But on Breeders' Cup Day, they're so evenly matched and whatnot. Don't let the odds float up, scare you away.
And the other is for the Breeders' Cup, you have to, the amount of time you have to invest in your tickets is enormously close to the amount of time you invested in handicapping. It's like, there's so much there. It's like looking at the ultimate smorgasbord, and you need to get a plan. And I've told this story before, but for many years in this building that was over there, we had a teller that I liked very much, was a pro and everything. And I would go up and I'd be like, Tim, are you ready? And he knew, yes. I said, these are going to be all the win bets. Then the exacta, and I've said this before, I use 6-horse exacta box in the Breeders' Cup. It works out. It sounds silly, but it works out, especially with the type of horses I typically like. I said, and then I have part wheel trifectas. Those are the 3 bets I make. But I spent so much time putting the tickets together in the part wheel trifectas that it's like you have to spend a lot of time. It's so rewarding, the mutuals, that you have to have a plan of attack in your betting mode, almost more so than handicapping, because they're so even, as you said. Yeah. It's like you're going to be in the mix, you're going to get wiped out in some, but when you're in the mix, you have to have the right tickets going forward to put yourself in position to win. And that's why I ask, because to me, it's like, when I usually get done handicapping on like Wednesday, and then I spend Thursday putting the tickets together.
And this coming Wednesday, hours. we can start that early work that'll give you some ideas of which races you want to concentrate on a little more and whatnot. It's always a lot of fun, and there's always the opportunity for a very big couple of days.
And that's the thing I tell them. I said, and not only that, except for the distaff, it's almost always rewarding. It's like you will be rewarded for your work on Breeders' Cup weekend.
I will say this: it has changed over the years, and I like the more races. I like that.
I know where you're going.
But in the days of those 7, 8 races, I used to do a thing on Equidale for years and years, but it's changed now. There was a period of years where you could have bet every horse at 20-1 or over and wound up with a flat bet profit for a number of years.
Ed DeRosa has continued to do that. You're at 10% profit if you'd bet all the horses at over 20-1.
But in the old days, that used to work out much, much better.
Oh, even better than 10%. Oh, that's tremendous.
In the old days.
Well, because you had almost one on every card, so that was great.
Folks didn't have the options that they have now to spot their horses.
Oh,
and so horses were in races that were maybe not necessarily meant for them, and they would go off at a big price, and it was a little bit of a different betting animal back in those days.
I will tell you something. I did the math computations the other day about thinking about next year. My idea that I think chasing the superfecta, you have to buy the all button. This was told to me. I didn't come up with it. I think it's a good idea, and I calculated what I think I would need for my bankroll at Santa Anita. I'm thinking about doing that. Is to specifically, because I have done is I have a thing of the trifecta as a function of the superfecta paid based on the horse that ran fourth, and I have 4 and 5-1 shots running fourth that the super paid 10 times the price of the try. I just have to manifest the bankroll, but I'm thinking about that for next year. The reason I don't, but it eats up your bankrolls, which I can't afford yet. But it's the best. The options, the bet, triples, trifectas in every race, supers.
That's a nice segue into. I'll just hit on one more
thing.
Oh,
it's got to be the Keeneland race. I can't see the chart with my eyes. I'd have to, but it has to be the Keeneland race.
I was in here the other day. I think the TV almost set itself on fire with the results going back a couple days ago. Race 7 at Keeneland, 54-1, over 37-1, over 48-1, over 4-1. And for a dime, the super, $72,000 from what I read. One person.
Well, you can do the math because I think the pool was $92,000, so that was it. But here's the part.
For a dime. That's for a dime. $72,000.
That's where the advantage of the dime wagering helps you, because if it had been a $2 wager, you would have gotten the same thing.
Yeah.
The fractional wagering is a grand slam when you're the only winner, because you get the whole pool for 1/20th the thing. Now, here's what I couldn't believe. Look at the trifecta pool. And it's about north of 20% takeout.
This is a perfect example. The 4-1 shot goes from
thank you.
50 cents paying $7,800 to a dime paying $72,000 with the 4-1 running 4. That's interesting.
I have literally, after years of banging my head up against the wall and our son being just about old enough to drive, to take a job, literally, to get a bankroll to bet the supers. My other thought on the trifecta was about how did 14 people have to try? That's what I couldn't believe. The one person winning the super.
I said that day to anybody whose phone number ends in 6852. Wow. It's a good day for you.
If they're betting Keeneland on the midweek phone numbers. But it stands up, folks. I'm here to tell you the hurdle is the bankroll. And I've said this, the handicapping is immaterial. Why? You're betting the try and buying all. So you're not handicapping. You're handicapping the try. You're financially buying the superfecta. So it's not another layer of work. And speaking of work, are we ready for Aqueduct?
Yeah. Let's hop in. I'm going to take a little
busy day. No prep races, but Seth's got a great racing across America later on today.
I'll tout that because there's a big day down in Maryland.
That was the segue.
Yeah, no, I got it. I was picking up right up on it, I thought. We'll start with Jeremy Plonk because I haven't had him on in a while, horseplayernow.com, but he also handicaps for Keeneland, so we'll take a look at the 2 Keeneland stakes. And then there's some 2-year-old races down there I wanted his opinion on as well. But a little bit later on, John Piasek, who works now with the Maryland Breeders. I had him on earlier this year when he was with ABR, America's Best Racing, but he shifted over, working for the Breeders now. So we'll talk a little bit of Maryland Millions Day. If you haven't looked at that card, we'll have it here on the network this afternoon as well. A really nice, fun card down at Laurel for Maryland Millions Day. So we'll talk
I always thought they deserve extra kudos because they started it. Nobody had an idea. Nobody had an idea of having your state breds have their day. Not New York, not California, not Florida, nobody. Maryland. And I can tell you, he went to the Breeders' Cup after it. Herat, the offspring of Northern Dancer, won about $800,000, won the first Classic with Jerry Bailey, and he was on his way to the Breeders' Cup and impacting Precisionists, but they started it all, 1986, and they run it again today.
Yeah. All right, let's jump in. Belmont at the Big A on this Saturday afternoon. They'll kick off at about 12:35 with a maiden special weight event scheduled on the grass at 1.16 miles.
And they're on the outer turf, and when they came back for racing on Thursday, they're at 36 feet for the setups, and you probably have seen some rather quick 6 furlong times with this rail setting. This will be a Route 317 for the babies in here for me, and Invest Wisely gets my top pick, and Justify, who is turning out to be a more versatile early in his career stallion than American Pharaoh, comparing the two most recent Triple Crown winners. And American Pharaoh, as I had sort of indicated, to me seems to be leaning higher towards turf runners. Well, remember, Justify is a son of Scat Daddy. So I am definitely dialed into the fact that I think he's going to be a good turf stallion, maybe even better on the dirt than American Pharaoh. And I like Investing Wisely. Draws a good post in here, makes the third career start, hit the board most recently. Jose Ortiz, who took over for his brother most recently, he gets the mount back for a second, drawing the hedge or the temporary rail. Number 1, Just a Splash. And if this horse is near the 8-1, which I just can't see, the offspring of See the Stars, this is the type of debut race, folks, that I like very much. Now, was better than 20-1 on debut, ran better than odds, but more importantly to me, coming out of the Anthony Dutrow barn, showed good interest early in the race and fatigued on debut and finished off the board. I like that as a tune-up for Anthony Dutrow, and I think the offspring of See the Stars, number 1, Just a Splash, is dangerous in here at nearly double-digit odds. And for third, first-time starter for me, 12-1, the girl from Ireland, Graham Motion, sends out this runner, 3-1-7 in the opener.
And I would guess at this point, still on the turf, because while you were talking, I looked at our main man, Mark Hennig, and you can kind of trust him. But his most recent tweet is actually porcini-filled gnocchi with mushroom sauce from last night. So I'm guessing he hasn't heard anything about an off the turf. It looks pretty good too, but looks like at this point we're still on, which is a good news. Second race, Belmont at the Big A. Starter allowance race for runners going 7 furlongs.
Yeah, the starter allowance class in here. One of the things I've noticed about tracking the daily races at Aqueduct, there's whatever is going on in this chute, they don't seem to be able to run 7 furlongs or 8 furlongs on the dirt anywhere near the type of times that I am used to seeing for my whole life. It's like on a clear, fast racetrack at the Big A going 7/8, seeing nearly 126 for a final running time is so abnormal to me. And the mile times are like 139, 140. And yes, I am taking into consideration classification and those things. But boy, it seems like you just can't. And that's where I thought, I was thinking about this, Seth, the other day, especially with my figures with the rails up. I think this is where people just really get comfortable with the buyer's speed figures, because he's sort of done the work about quantifying what a 126.7 furlong time is in New York nowadays. But I am 837, and Buckingham Prince gets my top pick, coming off of a Saratoga race where they were claimed for $50,000. Goes out for Chris Engelhardt. First time off the claim. Chris is about a 20% first off the claim trainer. For second, number 3, basis risk. I'm going to be very intrigued at the final betting price with Jackie Davis.
I was about to say that 8-1 looks generous.
It seems as if that's just not possible. Not only, and Seth, you have always told me, boy, if the buyer's speed figures are that potent to get people to bet, well, this is King Kong. You can't be 8-1.
I mean, David Aragona, I think, is looking at the class, which I can't disagree with.
Yes.
He's kind of a maiden claimer, but
But
boy,
he's
that
dialed
number.
He is dialed into the betters, which makes him such a good morning line person. And he has to come to a similar conclusion as yourself. As good a handicapper as David is, he knows as a morning line maker that the public is so enamored with buyers that this just can't be. And not only that, the performance, I mean, yes, it was a maiden claimer, but you're like, well, you're in starter allowance, which is harder than the 2 L's, but that was a big physical performance at Saratoga. Now, the one thing he will say, and I will bet a Pepsi that Andy Sterling will mention this in a couple hours. People tend to tread very lightly on buyer speed figures at 6.5 furlongs at Saratoga. That distance and everything seems to be very interesting for figure makers and for third
And
numbers.
I'll also toss out, it was claimed away from Chad and Klarovich. So that's going to make a big difference, too, in people's minds.
All right. I think so, too. I'll obviously Mary Alice Coffey is not going to draw that type of attention. But the best buyer speed figure and winning by daylight, I'm going to be
totally
interested.
with you.
I'm dialed in.
I'm totally
dialed in.
that. I'm interested to see where the pricing lines up.
And Blake B for third. But very interesting starter allowance race. 8-3-7 for the second half of the early daily double.
Third race, Belmont at the Big A, stakes action. The Noble Damsel, a Grade 3 event, $150,000 up for grabs as the ladies go a mile on the grass.
Well, if I remember right, this used to be early in the NYRA schedule after they left Saratoga. This is usually a very nice turf race. We only have 5 in here. I am 4-1. I think many people would not be surprised if the 1 through 4 horses won this race. And when that's the case, as I've said, I'm not taking Plum Ali. In this case, I'm taking Christophe Clement's other runner who got Mr. Connecticut to the winner's circle yesterday. Javier Castellano has the mount on number 4, making the first start since winning at the Spa. Now, that was in July, and now comes back into stakes action after winning a 3X level. For second, the favorite, 8-5, Christophe Clement's other runner. Most recently seen down at Pimlico in the All Along with Dylan Davis was runner-up there. Most recent victory this spring at the Big A, running a mile in the Plenty of Grace. And for third, kept waiting. Second start since running in the Caress at Saratoga. Takes on stakes action after winning a 3X, sprinting 4, 2, and 1. And my biggest question in this race is that, what the fractions will be like. This could be a goofy race. There's only 5 horses in it. There's the pace is a question, except for the outside horse here, and it's going to be very interesting. And I guess getting nervous, especially in route races, where you can see like 115.24, and you're just like, well, now everybody's in the race. So it's just tread lightly is my point. I guess spread for the horizontals.
Belmont at the Big A, race number 4, state bred allowance types going 6.5.
3-1-6 for me, folks. Juliana's Rose goes out for the aforementioned Mark Henning. 1 start since early February. That was an off-the-board finish in the slop. First time versus winners at Saratoga, Labor Day weekend. Javier Castellano gets him out for the first time. We get to a fast racetrack, and you have to parse through the 4 races. But the 1 race on a clear, fast racetrack, won by a pole, breaking the maiden, that was the February race, went to the sideline. Second start off that demonstrative score. For second, for those who are fans of the movie Goodfellas, Funny How, Ray Handel's runner takes on winners for the first time after breaking the maiden here on September 29th. And for third, Jet Set Juliet, Bob Dunham doesn't run very many horses anymore. 0 for 14 this year. Horses good early speed. We'll see if he can hold on for a small piece. 3-1-6.
Blue Streak Racing has Ribos, Valentine for Ray Handel. So local connections there. Always like to mention and root for the
now I have
locals.
I generally almost every day you work, I have you on in the family room while I am working away in the kitchen. So it's like radio. And Ocean's...
That's the best way to see me.
Well, Ocean's Reserve won the other day.
Yeah.
And you did your obligatory. And I met him for the first time. He's a wonderful gentleman. Had his grandchildren on. I was like,
That's right.
that was the horse who was running that day.
It was a Thursday. We were both there.
He was running, and I was thinking, as he won, and we've talked about this before, how for owners, getting a couple second and third place checks in a racing condition isn't awful, and then breaking through. And I always thought, like, you really can't ask the owners on that type of show, puts them in a bad spot, but going through the conditions rapidly as an owner and an accounting process can make it hard. But getting a few five-figure checks running second and third is like not awful.
I would just tell people who are wondering what you're talking about to look up a state-bred maiden race sometime with a horse that had maybe 20 starts and hasn't broken through, and look up at the 150,000.
And
like, it's not so bad.
And that's where this game has the yin and the yang between betting and owners. And like he said that day, he'd come off a good spot. He was one of the. I think he ended up being the. He was,
The one thing
but you're like.
I think a guy like him with a partnership like that, I think he definitely wants to win at Saratoga, regardless.
Yeah,
of
for
the
selling.
Yeah.
But on the other side of the partnership, he's collecting dough.
Yeah. But
Right.
as I said the other day, that he had 4 races where middle of the stretch you're like, he's home, and he just wouldn't do it. But the other day, he just outclassed that.
Yes,
and Dan was down there. Dan, we're speaking about Dan Collins at Bonaventure Stable, but he was down there, so good for them. 5th Belmont at the Big A maiden specials, mile and 16th.
It's 5.86 for me, and I think at this point in the year, if I can get an offspring of Kingman at middle distance turf in the United States for Chad Brown at 6-1, I'm okay. Now the debut, I'm not that interested. The beginning was the end for him. I'm throwing it out. Maybe that helps with the price. I'm not interested. This is just me. A sharp barn, obviously an outstanding jockey, an offspring of Kingman. I'm taking my chances here at a $14 mutual. Here's another one. I'll be very interested to see what the betting line is. How forgiving, based on these connections, are people? For a second, number 8, Sun B, goes out for a Graham Motion. Back-to-back second place finishes so far. 1 sprinting, 1 rooting for the offspring of English Channel. And for third, Mademoiselle Jackie, number 6. They take blinkers off. Just got beat at 7-1. 5.86 in the 5th. And I trust we're going to break. A quick note. I did the work, so since the comeback on May 14th, I'm plus $27.
Oh, nice. Very good.
It's almost 6 months. People don't know the weight this has on me, but I think I did the math right. The return.
So 6 you're counting the whole Saratoga meet?
Every day that I've been a public handicapper on Capital.
No, that's what. But I was thinking you when you first mentioned it, I was thinking you were talking just this meet.
No, it's just my. No. This meet we're going to finish out ahead because of the horse. $97. They're not getting.
That's right.
They're not getting.
This meet's a slam dunk. Yeah.
And last week I had like $30 more. So what do you got?
Your $97 matron winner is in the Keeneland sale. So some of that matron money, maybe you should go down and pay it back.
I think
I'll chip in. I got $100.
So it was like,
American Apple. I read like 3 days ago. They entered her in the Keeneland sale.
You have to sell.
Come up and let it
sell. But I did about. So it came back around May.
That's right. I'm thinking.
This
meet now. Yeah, this meet you're good. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue in New York and then shift to Kentucky. Stay tuned.
Doesn't get any better than this, Tom. They're all in line, ready for the start. And they're off. American Merrow comes into his final furlong. Brings the winner, a horse of a lifetime. This is unbelievable. It's one of the most sensational ever.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku.
The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player? To have a better knowledge of the game? To be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report on this October Saturday morning. It was chilly, but it was at least sunny. It was funny. There were trees.
It's a beautiful autumn day.
I get out and get in my car, and probably 4 weeks ago, 2 trees really started to turn, which they do every year, and became a bright red.
I love
and
that.
Their leaves are completely gone
They're
now.
maples.
But driving down the Northway, there's been last week or so plenty of color.
This is
out
like,
there
to
for
me, the
folks.
part B of autumn that I like. I don't like the part C part that comes around Denise's birthday, but the A, B part are nice.
Yeah, very good. 6 to Belmont at the Big A. Maiden specials going 7.
Thought this was the Cairo Prince Invitational, folks. 285 for me. Classic catch. Gets my top pick. First time starter from the juvenile champion. Classic Empire. Todd Pletcher sends out the runner. Another horse. I'd be very interested to see if 6-1 pops up. Now, there are situations I'm usually enamored when the price of my horse goes up. Todd Pletcher's firsters, though, are not in that group. If they're dead on the board, it can be dicey. For a second, one of the Cairo Princes, number 8, Yorkshire Prince, goes out for the Tom Morley barn, no matter what the daily racing form says, has a bullet for the debut. And for third, number 5, making the third start, they add blinkers 285. Jess, I know I made fun. The 4 and the 9 are the 2 other offsprings of Cairo Prince.
I will toss out, I put Rudder's Men on top, who is a Pletcher firster. And I've just tossed this out because keep your eye on this horse by Battalion Runner. And that may be one of those sires we want to keep our eyes on because so far 2 for 3 with first-time starters.
I was going to say,
a little bit.
I haven't seen his name pop up yet.
And one of those was in Puerto Rico. They were at minor.
I'm not going to find that.
They were at minor tracks, but just keep your eyes on that because again, it may be a sire you want to latch onto a little bit with firsters. 7th at Belmont at the Big A, the Hill Prince Grade 2 event. These are amongst that sub category I like quite a bit. 3-year-olds on the grass, mile and 1/8.
Well, this used to be a springtime race till about 8-10 years ago, because it used to be the Saranac, the Hill Prince, and the Lexington. The Lexington's gone, the Saranac's at Saratoga, and the Hill Prince is in an autumn race. I think it's an outstanding addition today. I am 10-8-2, limited liability. We like to think of that. Mr. McGahee sends out this runner after a third-place finish in the Virginia Derby. I thought a good, solid effort there. Now comes back at a mile and 1/8. We're on the outside. We don't have early speed. I think Jose Ortiz is just going to be able to drop in and save ground. For second, number 2, unanimous consent. Chad Brown's runner was behind my top pick in the Virginia Derby. Now, that was the first start since early June. And for third, number 2, Grand Sonata. Todd Pletcher's runner up in the Dueling Grounds Derby. That's run over at Kentucky Downs, because that's what it used to be named, but 10-8-2.
Race number 8, State Bred Maiden Claimers, 7 furlongs, top of my page. I've written tough race.
I agree with you there. I mean, I have about, I'm going to do the math here for you, 6 first time in for a tag, big angle, 5-8-1. None of those 6 are in my mix, but number 6, Testadora, goes out for Linda Rice. Debut at 6-1 might be better than the final running position. Indicates moving forward. Debuted for the same price tag, so I'm moving onward and upward. For a second, number 8, MCRR, Rudy's horse. And for third, number 1, Destin Huffman, who I think I saw at a basketball game on TV the other day. Brilliant on debut. We will get nowhere near 16-1.
Ninth at Belmont at the Big A. Allowance, non-winners of one other than a mere $105,000 up for grabs as they go a mile on the grass.
As soon as I saw that name, I immediately thought of Jacqueline Klugman. But 7-2-3 Internal Capital. I think will be a short price in here for Chad and Flavian Prat. Brilliant on debut Labor Day weekend at Monmouth for second. Number 4 is Steady On. Third career start after improving dramatically in the second career start, rooting for the first time. And for third, number 3, Impulsiveness. Todd Pletcher's other runner lost first time versus winners at the Spa in August. 7-2-3.
Yeah, and there was a couple years, it was probably the Jacqueline Klugman years, where Jack Klugman was, in and around Saratoga during the meet as an owner, obviously.
Yes.
10th at Belmont at the Big A, wrapping things up. State bred optional claimer, 3/4 of a mile on the grass.
For me, this was the most wide open race of the day, and I'm following my guideline in betting, and that is not to fall on low price horses when you think 8 horses are live. 835 Yarrow gets my top pick. Hasn't run since Saratoga August 21st. That was first time at this level. For second, number 3, Deep Cover. The Tom Morley barn. This is just record keeping, folks. Makes just got beat at this level at the Spa, sprinting on the turf. And for third, Phantom Smoke. 835 in the finale.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention to Keeneland. Stay tuned.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. Here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals hang ahead with Joe Hart very dominant. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the top. Here's the winner. Photo finish.
Having trouble finding us? It's actually quite simple. Whether online or on your TV, it's never been easier to watch and wager on championship horse racing with Capital OTB. Simply log on to capitalotbbet.com. There you can watch our morning shows, live stream races, and wager on our state-of-the-art wagering platform. You can also watch from the comfort of your home on Spectrum Cable Channel 1250 or Fios Channel 467, and win more with Capital OTB.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Turning our attention to Keeneland. Their 10 race card today. The opener, 2-year-olds, maiden claimers in for 30, racing a mile of 16.
I'm kind of going with your theory here on this opener, in that it's a race where I kind of like, there's a nothing. These are the kind of races I like. These 2-year-old maidens, maiden claimers. It's a little more dicey, but there was nothing in the things I normally look at that really jumped off the page. So I'm going to go 2, 6, 12, and 11, 20-1 on Riley B. And I'm just going to kind of latch on to Sharp Aztec as a sire of first out runners. So far this year, 53 firsters, 7 wins, 7 seconds, a couple thirds. This horse worked an okay 10.3 before the Ocala sale. Only attracted 17,000, but they debut for 30. The trainer not necessarily known to win with firsters, but again, it's a race where I don't think anything stands out. And this one has a little bit of win early breeding. O'Connor Sunset in the second spot. Curlin also okay with first-time starters. This one's Wesley Ward, 10-1 there. I'll take a shot. And then go to Mamba Forever, who has tried better in the first 3 starts of the career for Ken McPeak. Gets a little class relief. Same with Qualified for Brad Cox. On the class relief, those horses with experience look interesting. But they're both hung outside, so they'll have to overcome that. In the open, I'm going to go 2, 6, 12, and 11.
They run them in California. They run them in Kentucky. I don't think they've run them in New York yet, but 2-year-old fillies going 7 furlongs, maiden claimer, 150,000 if you have it laying around.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see who, if anybody, gets picked up out of this one. 8, 3, 10, and 1. Again, take a little shot, 10-1 for Royal Dane by Bolt d'Oro. The first start of the career, I thought it was okay. Had a little trouble, wound up fourth in the field of 8. It's Eddie Keneally. I wouldn't be surprised if this horse benefits from the experience. Now, Bolt d'Oro's on top, but it's the dam's first foal, so there wasn't much to go on underneath. But again, first start was okay, so we'll latch on to that one. Valiant Praise in the second spot. Another Kenny McPeak runner that's going maiden special weight to maiden claiming. And again, there's some experience here and some okay experience, particularly the last race, which was a near miss effort against Better. And then in the third slot, we'll go with Weehawken, maiden special weight to maiden claiming for Mark Casse. This one worked 10.1 before the Ocala sale. Hasn't quite lived up to that, but I thought the dirt start at Ellis was okay. The Beyer was a little light. The Beyer improved when they tried the Rich race over at Kentucky Downs. I think with those two under the belt, this one becomes intriguing also. In the second at Keeneland, 8, 3, 10, and 1.
And the historical significance of Weehawken is?
Weehawken? I don't know. It's New Jersey, right? Weehawken,
Yes.
New Jersey? I do not know. Would it be like a minor league baseball team?
No.
Weehawken? Wasn't there?
Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr duel. Site
Oh.
of their duel and the demise of Alexander Hamilton.
I don't know whether I would have gotten that if it was a Jeopardy
Weehawken. It's the
question.
only thing. Okay, on to the third, 3-year-olds and up. Maiden claimers in for 75, going 6.
That's funny, too. You think about how different times are. They had the duel. Like political rivals these days. Yeah, let's have a duel.
And socially acceptable.
That's the point.
And almost socially that's a good idea. This is how we'll settle things. They're like
10
advocating
paces
it.
and
Yeah,
one of you comes out ahead. The third at Keeneland, I have it 8, 4, 3, and 1. I'll put Nimrods on top, Dale Roman's trainee. By Outwork. Outwork, again, another nice sire of first-time starters. 58 first-time starters this year, 13 winners, a couple seconds, and 7 thirds. And this one has a couple of workouts underneath that indicate this horse could be live in debut. So we'll take a shot with number 8. Bet He's Ready goes out for Steve Asmussen, has had plenty of opportunities and hasn't gotten it done. But hasn't been seen since March down at the fairground. So a little bit of a layoff, comes out back for the tag. All of that has me going either way because I think this horse could come back improved off a little bit of a layoff. But if that's the case, why are they dropping in for the tag? But I'm not going to leave it out of the mix. It's Asmussen and Gaffleone. And then Insolito in the third spot. Couple of starts and made special down at Oaklawn. Then laid off a long time. Came back for the tag at Churchill. Showed some speed before fading. Claimed out of that event, though. But I think off of that, might be a little bit intriguing this afternoon. In the third at Keeneland, 8, 4, 3, and 1.
On to the fourth, on the turf at a mile and 16th. Fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. I don't get to say this on this program very often. 4X.
Yeah, and we've talked about a few of those over the last couple of weeks. At least
and
a couple of them, but
and
they
they
are.
don't need to add the claiming condition in to get those horses in. They run straight 3X and 4X.
Yeah, it's very rare. 3, 4, 6, and 1 for me. I'll put Flippin' on top. Tried Kentucky Downs last time, a stakes race at Kentucky Downs last time. It comes out of a string of stakes races for Vicky Oliver. Vicky Oliver horses are always worth taking an extra look at down in Kentucky, and I think this one could be live given the class levels we've seen over the past few starts. I think it's going to be a good fit with this bunch. Also stepping out of stakes company, Curly Ruth goes out for Eddie Keneally. Similar situation. I think just is going to match up nicely with this particular group. I think it's a competitive bunch, but I think these two are going to class up well. Park Avenue for John Sadler, also coming out of some stakes races. A couple of them at Del Mar. This could be the speed of the bunch, and on that, may be very, very dangerous in here. There's a couple others with maybe a little bit of potential speed, but I think Park Avenue is the one that's going to go out and try to take them all the way around, and I don't think that's out of the question. In the fourth, 3, 4, 6, and 1.
On to the fifth, 2-year-old fillies, maiden special weights, 6.5 on the dirt.
5, 4, 1, and 8. I'll put Catskill Humor on top. Might remember this one from Saratoga just a couple of years back. This one had a sibling called Gozilla, who was very impressive in debut up at Saratoga for Asmussen and Zayat. Subsequently didn't turn out to be as much as the debut indicated, but on that debut effort, And with Practical Joke on top, you have a win early sire and a dam who has produced win early. I think this one could be very, very intriguing for Brad Cox. We'll see if the 4-1 holds up. Twirled comes out of a maiden race that was won by American Apple, the horse that came back off that Kentucky Downs start to win at the big price in the matron for my partner here. And so I thought this horse was very, very intriguing given that whole scenario. That said, the Asmussen runner debuted on the turf, obviously. Kentucky Downs moves to the dirt today, but with Twirling Candy on top, I don't think that's going to be an obstacle. And Poblano in the third spot, the number 1 horse, Brendan Walsh trainee, sibling Avery Island that you may remember, won in career starts number 2, 3, and 5, and starts 3 and 5 were stakes races. So I think there's some win early here that makes it worthwhile taking a shot at that 12-1 morning line price, particularly with Tyler Gaffleone on board, who again is riding very, very well down at Keeneland this meet. 5, 4, 1, and 8 for me.
Take a quick break. When we come back, second half of today's action from Keeneland.
The Clubhouse Racebook is the Capital Region's new home for racing and sports. 25,000 square feet of Vegas-style action with live wagering on the best horse racing from around the world. 260 flat-screen televisions and state-of-the-art wagering terminals. So don't miss out. The fun is only minutes away at 711 Central Avenue, Albany, just off exit 5 of I-90. And don't forget, if you can't make it to the Clubhouse, you can always wager online 24/7 at capitalotv.com.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Turn our attention to race number 6, 3-year-olds in the Perryville.
It's a fun race.
Yes.
I have it 8, 3, 7, and 2. I debated, though, but Gunhite just, over the past few starts, has looked very good, particularly the last race down at Churchill. So I wound up there. I think he's logical and certainly will take a lot of action. But Artorias for Chad Brown, lately raced. They took the shot in the Travers, and his buyer went forward nicely. But, you know, he just wasn't the same caliber as Epicenter and Cyberknife and Zandon and whatnot. But that they took the shot says that they have some ambitions. And given that what he had done in the race before to kind of validate the shot in the Travers, that performance in the Curlin says that I think he's going to be a player in this race this afternoon. Of a Revolution goes out for Safi Joseph. Nice second in the Gallant Bob last time down at Parks, ran second over at Charlestown as well, but he seems to be moving in the right direction over the past few starts and could be an interesting player in here also. Provocateur, I didn't know what to do with off the performance in the Gallant Bob, but the race just before probably puts him in the mix. Boy, if you get the 15-1 that the morning line shows on Provocateur, take an extra look at the Pletcher horse. But in the 6th at Keeneland for me, 8, 3, 7, and 2.
So I guess Epicenter is going from the Travers to the Breeders' Cup Classic. All right, up next, Phillies and Merrows on the turf, sprinting 5.5.
Yeah, speaking of layoffs, it is
almost forget about it.
It's a different world. 7th at Keeneland for me, 12, 2, 3, and 6. I'll go to Always Late. Goes out for Belmont. Big closing kick last time at Kentucky Downs. Also showed a nice closing kick at Saratoga in the race before that. Again, you're always up against it when you have that kind of a running style, particularly in these turf sprints. But I'll take a little pop that Joel Rosario will have the horse in a good spot, and we'll hear from this one down the lane. Empress Tigress goes out for Jonathan Thomas and Augustin, off some nice performances to start the career, including a couple of nice stakes tries up at Saratoga most recently. Lightly raced, you would think there's still some upside potential, and I expect a big effort from that one. And Storm Kiss moved to the turf in the last 2 starts for Wesley Ward. The first turf start up at Saratoga, not much, and then at Kentucky Downs, gets a win at 10-1. I think probably what we saw at Kentucky Downs is more likely in the ballpark of what we'll see from this one today. And again, with only the 2 turf starts, maybe still some upside potential for this one moving forward as well. 12, 2, 3, and 6.
Race 8, entry-level allowance, going 9 furlongs on the dirt.
10-6-1, and if the 13, the first on the AE list, gets in, take a look at the Safi Joseph runner, but I put strong quality on top for Mark Cassie. 5 starts so far, a win, 3 seconds and a third. Last time stretched out to the mile and an eighth, led much of the way, and just got caught at Churchill. I think with that one under the belt, that's going to benefit the horse this afternoon. And maybe this early speed is going to be a little more potent today. Film Star in the second slot for Brad Cox. This one also has some early speed. This one is stretching out for the first time after a couple of mild starts, one at Ellis and most recently at Churchill. The Ellis was a nice maiden breaker. The Churchill race was a 3rd place finish, but was at this non-winners of 1. And I often say, sometimes it'll take a start or 2 to figure out the next condition up. And so with that experience under the belt last time for Film Star, expect to move forward. And War Campaign in the 3rd spot. Tried Stakes Company last time and just missed at Churchill. So moving back to the proper non-winners of 1, I think will be beneficial. 10, 6, 1, and 13.
On the 9th, 3-year-old fillies going 7/8 in the Raven Run.
Rooting for Dave Donk. Fingal's Cave, 4 for 4 so far. Nice little New York bred. Does have a win against Open Company and an allowance up at Saratoga. The other 3 races were against State Bred Company. And she's been very good throughout the career, obviously, with the 4 for 4 record. So I'm going to root for this one just as a New York bred. Dave Donk's a great guy, always very accommodating when I ask him to pop on the show up at Saratoga. Always enjoy the conversation. So be rooting for this one, but I also think what we've seen so far, very talented. And I like the confident move to say, let's go out and try these types at Keeneland. Smash ticket in the 2nd spot for Rob Atras. Stakes win last time at Pimlico. That was coming off an optional claimer up at Saratoga. And this one is 4 for 6 with a 2nd and a 3rd. So this also a very, very talented runner. And not a New York bred, but a New York based runner for Atras. So they're also taking their shot at Keeneland. And I see no reason why, off what we've seen so far, this horse won't be a contender. And then Freedom Speaks goes out for Jeremiah Engelhart. This horse is kind of interesting. Started the career on synthetic, breaking the maiden in the career debut. Followed it up on the dirt, ran well in a stakes race there. Then comes up to New York and moves into the barn of Jeremiah Engelhart and has 2 turf starts, both wins. But they get back to the dirt today. Again, it's just an interesting scenario, and given the dirt start we saw down at Gulfstream, I see no reason why this horse won't run very well. 5, 2, 7, and 9.
And in the finale, 3-year-olds and up maiden special weights, 9 furlongs on the turf.
I have it 7, 5, 9, and 12, but I will note if 13 and or 14 drawn from the also eligibles, take a look at those. But I'll put Push Button on top. Decent little try in the debut for Mike Maker. Luis Saez on board today. And again, I think the horse is going to benefit. You know, the races over Kentucky Downs, they're salty. It's a different kind of a course. And if you put in a pretty good effort, I think you come out of that and you maybe have a little bit of an edge. So I'll tilt towards Push Button. Timo in the 2nd spot, the Augustin runner, 3 starts so far. The last was the best yet at Colonial Downs. So maybe the light bulb is kind of turned on. Inbound in the 3rd spot. Plenty of opportunities, hasn't gotten it done. But also one that seems to, over the past couple of starts, maybe figured it out and could be moving in the right direction. 10th and final at Keeneland, 7, 5, 9, and 12.
All right, that wraps up our look at Keeneland. Less than 2 weeks out to the Breeders' Cup. I was just thinking, I think 36 years ago, this was probably the day that Creme Fraiche defended his Jockey Club Gold Cup title for the Woodman, coupled with Danzig Connection beating Turco Man as they were prepping for the Breeders' Cup Classic.
Yeah, speaking of Dave Dunk, he used to be an assistant to
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And so we got the entries on Wednesday. Racing Across America up next. You have Jeremy Plonk at the top of the hour.
Talk some Keeneland, and we'll also talk some of the 2-year-old performances there that have been intriguing. And John Piasek will take a look at the Maryland Millions. Really nice card today at Laurel.
Yeah, I mean, you can't believe it. So, also, speaking of 1986, that's when they kicked off this idea. And what I was shocked to learn is, like,
John Gaines.
It's been mostly intact. There's like 7-8 races have been really kind of along since the beginning. They kind of got it right out of the box, what they would...
I remember there was the failed experiment of the Ladies Classic. And people were not going for that.
I think the Ben's Cat one is gone, isn't it? He won it 3 years in a row.
Oh, you're talking Laurel. I thought you were talking Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, no. What one left the Breeders' Cup? The Juvenile Sprint.
No, the Breeders' Cup, I was saying the Ladies' Club for a couple of years, they named the
they changed the
Ladies'
name.
Classic.
Yeah, that didn't work.
People weren't buying
That
it.
didn't
The
work.
Ben's Cat, yeah, you may be
I think
right.
that race is gone. He won it 3 in a row. They're like, well, we'll shut it down now. Well, the other one the race that didn't last was the Marathon and the Juvenile Dirt Sprint, which shocked me. I was like, I know the Maiden won the last one they had, but I was thinking, I was thinking that race was going to get overfilled for years.
Yeah.
And it went away. A Juvenile Dirt Sprint, I think they only ran it 2 or 3 times. I think Bob Baffert might have won it twice. But I'm like, 6 furlongs, 2-year-olds. But
yeah, that seems like a no-brainer.
yeah. So Wednesday they drop entries for that. Exciting time of year. Get to work. In this day and age, it's a lot easier than the old days with YouTube and the international racing and the domestic racing. And, you're going to have it for 10 days beforehand. And then you'll get odds and everything 72 hours before it. And, I always say, it's, take your rubber band off the bankroll. You plan for it for the year. And the reason you do is there's a score. I mean, there's no day like it gambling. You have 10, 12 opportunities. Usually 1 or 2 races come up light. There's not much of a chance. But the other times, boy, and I'd say I've never looked at, because of my nature, I've never looked at the pick 3s, pick 4s, and pick 5s. But they got to be gigantic.
Yeah.
But there'd be no way I'd hit them. But I can hit a trifecta. He stays. Anything?
I was going to say, that's what you do. You go for your wheelhouse.
Yeah, you have to learn. He stays. I go. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great Saturday afternoon.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.